Resume recording. Share screen. All right, welcome to the Advisory Committee meeting of March 5th, 2026. We have a couple of items on the agenda for tonight. We kick things off with a discussion from our appointing authority, the moderator, who is here with us tonight. Then we have the human resources and personnel budget, and then a discussion of the warrant as it stands, assignments, questions, comments, and the like. If there are members of the public here who would like to say anything, drop your name in the chat. Doesn't look like there are members of the public
There are
here
no
other than
members
town
of the
staff.
public who are not town staff, right?
Great, then I'm going to turn it over to Neil to guide us through a conversation. And you're muted, Neil, so that'll be your first job.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've seen all of you, probably since the last town meeting. But it's the beginning of the town political season, so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the advisory committee and vis-a-vis the town political season. And I'm going to divide this into a number of different categories. One is kind of red lines where I think something needs to happen. Another area is gray area. Another is optics. And then another is items that I think require disclosure. So let's talk first about the red line areas. And these should be no surprise, given our longstanding rules from prior moderators. So first, if you're going to run for townwide office, I would ask that you step down off of advisory. And that's been a longstanding rule. And I haven't heard anyone here running for any townwide offices, so we don't have that issue this year. Carlos last year ran for townwide office. We had talked, and I said, okay, if you don't get in, I'll reappoint you. So there's usually no, quote, penalty. I encourage folks to run for townwide office. It's a good thing to do if you feel up to it. I did it for, well, I'm still doing it, I guess, and I find it extremely rewarding. Another red line is publicly chairing a townwide political campaign. So if, for example, you're going to chair any of the upcoming override campaigns, either for or against, I would ask that you either take a leave from the advisory committee or step down. So those to me are the red lines. The gray areas are if you're an officer in a townwide political organization. I know a number of you are. We've talked about it. We all know who you are and the organizations that you're involved with. Uh, Permitting you to stay on advisory has kind of gone across multiple moderators, so I'm not going to change that. But if you're going to be an officer or the public face of a townwide political organization, we should have a conversation and just be aware that you shouldn't mix your activities there with representing the advisory committee. That to me would be kind of the way you would cross the line. So that's kind of the gray area. Optics here's where it kind of gets a little interesting. So if you're publicly identified with a potential campaign or a political campaign, and then you advertise your affiliation with the advisory committee, and that's happening a couple of times now. especially with the override, the upcoming override. Um, and here I think we have a little bit of an optics problem because a core function of the advisory committee is vetting the town budget, and here we have an override. We know an override's coming. We don't know what's going to be in that override, how big that override is going to be, what's going to be included, what's not going to be included, the structure of the override. And then we have people saying, rep, with their advisory committee affiliations listed, saying, hey, yeah, we want the override. So to me, that's kind of saying, endorsing a blank check, which I think isn't a good idea for a member of the advisory committee. So at the very least, I would ask that the affiliations with the advisory committee, that you ask the campaigns to take that down. And I would also ask that you really think long and hard about whether you should be listed prior to uh, uh, the override being set. I personally think that's kind of bad optics. But I'm gonna leave that to you. But to me, the only instruction would be remove the affiliation with the override, and then it's up to you to determine whether you want your name listed. And then the last area is one of disclosure. We have a number of folks who are involved with various advocacy groups or single issue groups, a Friends of group. Um, you, you might be on the Council for Aging. So for there, I would just ask that if you're going to participate in a debate or vote that affect those organizations, that you either abstain or disclose that you're involved in those organizations.
Or
So,
both.
or both. Um, any questions, discussion? I open the floor.
Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. Neil, thank you. So I have a disclosure of affiliation question. It's important to campaigns to identify town meeting members, select board members, other townwides, members of the advisory committee, as a leadership, pardon the expression, right? And so I appreciate why it might be inappropriate to get ahead of public hearings and oversight by the advisory committee. But there is a point at which the advisory committee's work in that regard is essentially finished. We've had the hearing, we've voted on the budget. We've taken a position as advisory committee members. And does it then become appropriate to be able to say, Neil Gordon Advisory Committee as an endorser of, whether it be the override campaign or something else? Or where's the line, right?
Yeah, so I'll kind of throw that up to the gray area. It would be easy for me to say, well, once the advisory committee has done its work, you can, list the advisory committee. I would just be very careful that it's apparent you're not speaking for the advisory committee.
Agreed.
It's very common, when you endorse a candidate, you get put in those groups, and one of those groups is advisory committee, and I don't have a problem with that. I would expect, this is a group of the most politically active folks in town, and I don't want to get in the way of that. Everyone here has opinions. You're on this committee because you are an opinion leader in town. People look up to you. I don't want to get in the way of that, but I think we have to protect the advisory committee as an institution. So maybe what I'll say is, if I see it and I have an issue, I'll let you know. I know I didn't answer it quite as cleanly as you would have wanted.
Pretty close.
See, I've learned to be a politician, I guess.
Uh, Other questions or comments?
Linda Olson Pelkey, who I will note has been named Woman of the Year.
Ah, congratulations,
Yay.
Linda.
Oh, thank you. One of three, but thank you. So this is kind of along the same lines as Neil's question, I guess. And the here from Dennis about the disclosure versus abstaining versus recusing, all of that. I mean, so everybody knows I'm involved in Brookline by Design, one of the steering committee members. But to come to a vote or in discussing an issue with advisory, I am never representing that group. And if I was, I would be very clear about that. It would have been something that we, meaning the steering committee, had discussed and voted on and decided. So I don't really feel, I feel like by being asked to say, hey, I'm part of this group, is actually giving it more credence than it really deserves. And it's also raising the specter that I may be representing that group in my statements. So that's why I don't do that, because when I open my mouth there, it's strictly for me, period. And sometimes my discussions here and what people say here might influence how the steering committee would vote on something. But I just don't really see the overlap.
I think it's less of an issue. I know there are a number of people who are involved with Brookline for Everyone.
Mhm.
And we know who they are, and when they speak, we know they're not speaking for them, and we know your affiliation with Brookline by Design. I'm frankly less worried about that on a case by case disclosure than I am where the affiliations may not be as known, such as you're an officer in a friends group where
Mhm.
people may not know it, but may have some bearing to that particular debate. So
Mhm.
maybe maybe you have disclosed that you are involved in that group. Other folks have disclosed they're involved in Brookline by Design. Brookline for Everyone. I don't think you need to disclose it every time you speak. So
Okay, yeah, I can think of an
let's not go
example.
overboard. Let's not overthink
Okay,
this.
good, thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Let's not really change things.
right,
Yeah,
right, okay, thanks.
uh,
Is it
Jocelyn.
okay- is it
am I-
okay to speak? But isn't the disclosure really for the members of the public? I mean, I think particularly with zoning matters, it strikes me that for the benefit of the public who may not know what other folks' roles are, the disclosure ought to be made, and it can be as simple as, I'm a member of, Brookline by Design or B
And I'm not speaking for them.
but I'm speaking for myself.
That's
And
certainly
then,
the position, that's certainly the
audience-
position that I've held throughout, so,
Yeah.
for
So
all of those groups.
If I might, as you know, as one of those guilty as charged, involved folks with, co-chair of a political organization, Brookline PAX, I might draw that line on whether the PAX or any other organization has in fact taken a position. I think that if the organization and its board, in the case of Brookline PAX, has taken a position, for example, on a warrant article, that gives me a bias that I don't have with the board not having taken it up yet. I think that Jocelyn's point is fair, that once we have once there is a position, and I'm in executive leadership of Brookline PAX. I think that I've got an apparent conflict and a built-in bias, and I just assume I don't recuse myself, but I don't have a problem and think it's appropriate to say that out loud. Prior to that, it's, it's fairly well known.
And I would like to add one thing, which is that to Neil's tiering of each of these items, we have the sense of sort of what is reasonable for the public to expect, right? A political action committee whose stated objective is vote no on X or vote yes on X is different from a political action committee, which is in the case of Linda is responsible design focus, which could not be presumed a priori to have a particular opinion on any particular article. So it is without question that, at least in my opinion, is without question that affiliation or leadership in a political action committee in favor of or opposed to the upcoming override or other similar events would have to either disclose or stand down depending upon the situation. And in the case of the other political action committees, it really depends on the warrant article in question, right? What the discussion is and what the community would reasonably assume about about that body and your relationship to it. And I think what Jocelyn was saying, which is a simple, I'm a member, I'm not speaking for myself, goes a long way towards reducing people's concerns.
Or you are speaking for yourself and you're a member.
I'm sorry, whatever
Whatever, yeah.
I said.
You
I
got
meant to.
You got the point across.
I didn't speak
Janice?
articulately, but sorry.
Any other comments
Yes.
on this issue?
Janice?
Oh, us, okay.
Yep. Thank you, Harry, and thank you, Neil, for being here to discuss this. So one thing that you said is I'd like to sort of tease out a little bit more. You said that the goal is to protect the AC as an institution. And I know what that means to me. And to me, protection is not exactly the thing that most worries me about the AC. It's about our kind of legitimacy and elevation. And I think that that I wondered about your thoughts. I mean, some of this goes to that point, right?
Well, yeah. The AC, we all bring our politics to this, and we're opining in many instances on political questions. But I think getting to Janice's point, for the AC to be perceived as credible, I think people need to think that the AC is approaching issues with an open mind, looking at facts, and isn't really taking an ideological approach to various issues. Now, that's a challenge. And I know there's been a lot of criticism of the AC, leaning in particular directions on particular issues. But I think it harms the institution if people perceive that it's predetermined how a particular outcome is going to, how an outcome is going to come out of an analysis of the AC. And I think it hurts your credibility if people think that. So I think that's just something you need to be aware of. And it gets into the whole issue of optics. And why it's important that people perceive that they're getting a fair shot on all issues.
Yeah, to me, it's also the fact that just being recognized for the work that we do. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of work that we all put into to we take this work seriously on the AC, and I think that's often not um, not noticed or not respected by a town meeting, who we are advisory to, which
Right.
is what is always the most amazing thing to me. We are advisory to town meeting, and yet it sometimes feels as if we don't get any serious consideration for the hard work that we do.
I don't know if I would go that far. I'll point out that I'll just point you to Elisa's comment in the chat, which I agree with.
Thank you, Neil.
I hate two fingers, but David Mark,
Just
go ahead.
exactly on Janice's point, I want to remind people that the advisory committee was attacked in the press 100 years ago. And a couple of years ago, I sent you the Brookline newspaper articles where they were attacking the AC. So this is nothing new. This has been going on for a century. And maybe I'll find them and send them, since a number of people on today were not on AC then. But this is an ongoing thing. I have lost votes when I was running for town meeting because they said, "Oh, I'm not voting for you. You're on AC and you're too conservative." And it was because of the impression that the AC was a conservative body that people were refusing to vote for me because I was on AC without knowing anything about me. There's nothing new about this, and it's going to continue no matter how hard we try. And if Neil Wyshynski can use his awesome and incredible power as moderator to get us room 103 back, we would all appreciate that. Because we lose something on these all Zoom meetings that we really need to recover with live meetings. Thank you.
We have news on that front, David Mark,
Yeah.
for later.
And also, David Mark, there's comments in the chat to please send that article. People are interested. Fran Perler.
So I sort of like to follow up on what the Jays have said. I think optics is important. And although the majority of you have been there since that article was published, what was it, 100 years ago? Some of us are newer and are less known. And I think it's important for the public to know what political action groups we belong to. It's one thing if you're in a 501c3 charity, but if you're in a political action group, it gives you an, what is it the scientists call it, the unintentional bias that people would look at. So I personally would rather see people, when they are either voting or talking about something related to their political action group, that they just say, I'm in this group, I'm talking on behalf of myself, and I'm voting based on what I've heard here. And I get a lot of feedback. You know, I'm sort of like an on the ground person, and people just tell me, oh, there's bias there, there's bias there, and blah, blah, blah. And I think we could get better optics with the public if we just sort of say, hey, we're thinking about things. We might belong to organizations, but, you know, we're trying to decide based on what's best for Brookline. My 2 cents.
Thank you. Carlos.
Thanks, Harry, and I apologize. I'm on my phone, so I can't do the video. I was just going to continue a little bit on the lines of what Neil and I think Janice were talking about, which is sort of the perceived bias, or at least leaving your biases at the door. And I think, and I know that some of you may get upset with me, but I think it would be a very good thing for the advisory committee if we did leave our biases at the door. And because sometimes, for example, you have these discussions and the discussion is going one way, and you know, people are saying, well, yes, I don't think this project, I'm just going to make up something, but I'm going to say, oh, I don't think this project is good, or it's too big, or whatever it is. But then because you belong to, let's say, a housing proponent group or something, you end up voting for it, even though the comments were not really for it, or you end up abstaining, which I think we also need to stop abstaining so much, since the last Tuesday, I think a lot of the abstentions were supposed to be no's, but no one wanted to do it. And I think if we have the luxury to go through the depth of the discussion of the different subject matters, and sometimes what comes out of those discussions is quite surprising, and I think our votes should follow through and show those discussions, even if they don't agree with what we're supposed to vote for, as our biases. It's hard to do. I try to do it as much as possible, but it's hard to do. And I think if we did it more, then people would have a harder time saying, oh, it's biased, because they would say, well, that person is in favor of this, but they voted against it and if you watch the discussion, it shows why. So those are just my 2 cents, and hopefully we'll follow through on that. Thank you.
Elise, you have a question on Carlos's comments?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to double check that I understood or heard that correctly, Carlos. So when you say when you came up with that scenario where we go through like a debate process and we're listening to one another, but then and it seems like the majority of AC wants to go in one direction, but then let's say I vote in the opposite. Was it your thought that in that particular scenario, I should have gone with the rest? My vote should have gone with
No.
the rest of the AC?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is, say for example, I'm, I belong to a group that doesn't is perceived to not like development, for example, and a project comes up or zoning comes up, which is going to provide development or something like that.
Yeah.
And through the discussion, you're like, well, it's a really good development. I think we should go ahead and do it. That you should vote for yes instead of no, which is what the rest of your group outside of AC would have voted. So that you don't, you're swayed by more the debate, because we actually have more debate at the advisory committee than there is at town meeting. The debate at the advisory committee is actually, it's actually grassroots. I mean, it's just like we don't come with prepared speeches for 3 minutes. We come, we discuss. Sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes a different way. I'm always surprised, or sometimes surprised how it goes. But they're all genuine. It's all genuine speeches or debate. It's not a like at town meeting, we really don't have a debate. Because we can't react to other people's comments. We give a speech, everybody gives a speech, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then we vote. But I don't know if those speeches do anything. It's not like the debate where you react to what the other side said, because when we come with our prepared speeches, we don't even know what the other side is going to say. And the fact is, a lot of times we repeat the same information, even we do, because we came with our prepared speech and didn't know what the other people were going to say. So we end up being redundant in many ways. So what I love about the advisory committee is that it's a great, we never know how long it's going to take. It's a great debate. I mean, we debated the transfer station fund transfer fund, with a lot of great comments. And I think there was a lot of sort of good discussion there that wouldn't have happened if we all came with pre-assembled speeches and a pre-assembled idea or bias. So that's just what I'm saying. That we follow through with our discussion in the voting.
Okay, thank you.
Harry, can I respond
Yes,
to?
I was going to ask you to go ahead.
Yeah, to Margaret's clarification question of the ask. The ask is with respect to override of campaign groups that you not list your affiliation with the AC prior to the override being set, because the optics are that you as a member of the AC have decided already on a particular budget which is going to come before the AC. So I think it's just bad optics. And so the definite ask is remove your affiliation, and then my subsidiary ask is think about whether you want to be listed, and it's your call prior to the override being set. So that's the ask.
Michael Berger. Margaret, did you want to say or ask something?
I just said thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Michael Berger.
Thank you, Harry. So Carlos raised the question about, what is the value of the debate at town meeting? I actually find it quite illuminating because we get to hear from a lot of people, and it has influenced my vote on several times. But I wanted to get to the question of what the advisory brings that doesn't happen necessarily at town meeting comments. In some communities, the advisory committee is named the finance committee. And so I think what we can bring that's not political is an analysis of the pros and cons of any vote we take. We don't have to necessarily say, vote this way, this is the way we vote. You can just do an analysis. And I think the more that we begin analysis to town meeting, that doesn't necessarily say this is the way you should vote, I think that brings credibility. And we have a lot of time with the public and with the town to gather that information and present it to town meeting. I think that's what we can bring to town meeting. And I think that's the purpose and the unique opportunity that we bring that's not political. It's analysis based on a lot of input that we get. That's all.
Thank you. Susan Granoff, you go ahead of me.
Oh, okay. I'm actually going to reiterate what Michael just said. I think that one of the most critical functions that we serve is to do the kind of legislative research that other parts of government, such as at the state level and federal level, have staffs to do this. In Brookline, we are it. We are the ones who do the research on the warrant articles and other decisions that town meeting must make. And we don't simply analyze things. We actually do our own research. We don't depend upon what we're being told. We ask the hard questions. We go to different members of the town government to get additional background information. And we discuss this both at our public hearings and at the full AC. And we don't simply say, oh, let's just reach a decision. We keep digging deeply until we have the answers to the critical questions that people need to know to make a decision. And then we write our reports. So I think that we serve a critical function. And I don't know if people fully appreciate how much effort goes into the work that we do. But I think that without us, people would simply be voting their biases. And we have the opportunity to actually change minds based on the actual information that we're able to dig up. The other thing is that we may have different affiliations with different advocacy groups or different types of expertise that shapes our perspective, but that may in fact inform our ability to know what the questions are and the complexities of certain issues. And the key is the makeup of the entire advisory committee, because, and that's where you come in, Neil, because you're choosing all the different perspectives that are going to be on our committee. And I think we're all enriched by hearing different perspectives and by bringing different perspectives. And so I think that I think it has mostly worked, but I agree that people may be somewhat unaware of how much effort goes into it, and that we simply don't just take opinion polls of our committee and then that's how we vote. I think everyone seems to appreciate the information that's being brought to us when we take our votes. And so hopefully the word can get out to town meeting that people here take our job seriously and we really put in the homework that sometimes the petitioners themselves aren't doing. And I think that what we do is critical, and hopefully that people learn more about us and the word will get out somehow. But whatever, as David Mark said, whatever you could do to spread the word, Neil, would be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Ladd.
Thanks, Harry. I want to just, I hope, sum up the affiliation question. I agree completely with what Linda said a few minutes ago, and think since then things have gone in a slightly different direction. I'm one of those Brookline for Everyone people. You know, I'm affiliated with the organization because I share its general goals. The fact that I'm on its board, it seems to me, is really not relevant beyond the fact that I'm associated with it. I would make an exception if the organization has taken a specific position on a specific warrant article. Then maybe a disclosure is more important. The problem, it seems to me, is only the things that Carlos pointed out, which is the argument that someone would vote on take a certain position and a vote in AC only because of the position taken by an outside organization. I've never suspected anyone on this committee of doing that, and I don't think it's going to happen, and I'm not really worried about that. Thanks.
I would agree with that.
Linda Olsen-Pelkey.
Yeah, you know, Carlos brought up a really important thing, and I just wanted to share that it reminded me of the debate about should advisory votes be recorded. And I remember Stanley Spiegel was vehemently opposed. And I was so angry at him because I was so sure the right thing to do was to record the votes. And the more I'm here and the more we have discussions like this, maybe this is proof that it works, what we're doing. But I'm changing my mind on that because I do worry about people who were recruited by an organization, pledged fealty to an organization, gets put on this body, and then votes because they're thinking, oh no, my constituents voted for me because I take the stand of this group. And I do think it's problematic. And I think it would, the best solution, which is unworkable, would be if we could all explain our votes. You know, sometimes it does happen that I get phone calls. Why did you vote this way? People really want to know. And I share that. But it is a problem when we try to approach the discussion honestly and open-mindedly and vote what we think, and then hopefully that consideration of the political ramifications of that doesn't get in the way. So I hope we can all do that. That's really all I have to say about that.
Thank you. I'm going to make my comments now. I had planned to go because they're a little off the agenda, but Carlos kind of mentioned it. We had a vote the other night on a request, a transfer, reserve fund transfer request. That's one of the few things we do where we actually have the power to say yes or no. Most of what we do is we, as people pointed out, we advise town meeting. And they can take our advice or they can choose not to take our advice. But on certain things, we have control, and one of them is reserve fund transfers. The vote was 12 to 6 to 5. Now, I've spoken before about people abstaining, and I'm not pointing at any one person or anything because I don't even remember who abstained the other night. But I really, as Carlos pointed out, that was probably a 12 to 11 vote. And I would have still been on the losing side. And I'm not making this comment because I was on the losing side, because if that were the case, I'd be commenting every 5 minutes at town meeting and at this committee meeting. I'm used to being on the losing side. But when you, as an analogy, when you go to court, the plaintiff presents his case, the defense presents its case, and then the judge decides. And the system does not work if the judge says, well, you know, the plaintiff made some good points and the defendant made some good points, so I'm going to take a pass on this because I can't really decide or don't want to decide. That's not his job or her job. They are there to make a decision. On reserve fund transfers, we are asked to say, yes, transfer the money, or no, don't transfer the money. So absent somebody coming into the meeting wicked late, so they didn't hear the argument, or absent somebody having a direct conflict of interest, there are very few reasons why anybody should be abstaining on a reserve fund transfer. We are asked to approve it or not approve it. And you have to come up with a decision. You know, it's like the judge in the courtroom. He or she can't take a pass. They have to say, yes, I'm finding for the plaintiffs, or no, I'm finding for the defendant. And it really bothers me a great deal. It bothers me just as much when we're giving advice. There may be a few more reasons why you may take a pass on that. But we're being asked for our advice, and you're not doing us or the committee or town meeting any good when you sit here and go, yeah, well, really can't decide. So I'm not gonna say anything to you. Again, there are always exceptions, but the other night was, I think, egregious. And it shouldn't have been 12 to 6 to 5. It should have been something to 0. And so that's my comment. I told Neil Wyshynski I was going to make the comment, and he said, go ahead. So
I think that's it, right? Thank you, Harry. I agree with everything Harry just said. And thank you, Neil. I think we can move on to the personnel and benefits.
So I will say
budget.
goodbye and thank you all for serving.
No, Neil, you can stay and debate the budget. We're happy to have
Yeah,
you.
yeah, we can make it really late too if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
You could get the old feeling back, you know.
Been there, done that. Bye.
Right. Who's giving the subcommittee report on the?
Dennis, I'm doing HR and Harry Boers is doing personnel benefits.
Okay.
And the only question that I have is, did people get a chance to look at Anne Braga's PowerPoint slides? They're not very long. Do we want to look at those before we give the reports?
It's probably worth. Anne, do you want to walk through it? Okay, let me just make you a co-host. There you go. Thank you for your patience, Anne.
So Ann Braga, HR Director for the Town of Brookline. Tonight I'm going to present the HR budget for fiscal 27, and Melissa will be focusing on the personnel benefits. So where have we been? Where are we going? This is sort of a quick list of the things we've been doing and things we will be continue to do. Job descriptions, comparisons for equity, the DPW class and pay, comparator analysis for collective bargaining, employee training, policy review and updates, and collaborations across departments. Priorities for 26, or activities for 26 and priorities for 27. We established a personnel review committee or a position review committee for the authorization to hire clearance. And that is a meeting with the department heads regarding any positions that are looking to either be filled as new positions or backfilled due to folks leaving the positions. Continued investigations, coaching and counseling. We did do a few employee gatherings. We did a popcorn pop-in, a winter coffee break with treats from different staff members, and Public Service Recognition Week at Lars Anderson. And with our new learning platform, we completed 9,800 trainings in the last fiscal year. In fiscal 27, we did do a reduction of 1 employee before the start of the fiscal year. So our learning and development coordinator is no longer with us, and we are not refilling that position. So we are redistributing the learning and development work across our remaining staff, and working with staff in multiple departments to develop a regular cadence of training so that we're not doing 3 hours of training all at one fell swoop with employees, but to do a regular, like, quarterly training on different topics. And then we're looking at reviewing and streamlining hiring and offboarding, and a review of policy and benefits to see if we can provide options that aren't a high cost item, but could be a high return for either new or return or continuing employees. This is our budget at a glance. Salaries represent the majority of the budget, with services after that. Office supplies is tiny, and then education and training, conferences. The biggest change here is that you do see the reduction of permanent full-time staff of about $74,000. An increase of professional and technology services, and that is to fund our public safety recruitment and promotion processes. So coming out of civil service, we now have a different way to do promotions, and we have established a contract with a company called Get Badged to be able to do our hiring process for police officers. And the rest of that would be for implementation of our promotion process for firefighters into higher ranked offices. You see a reduction in the legal services budget, and then a small reduction in our office supply budget, and level funding on education and training, and a slight increase on our computers due to leasing prices. What's different, the reduction, it's a 40% reduction in the legal services budget, which funds arbitrations, investigations, and settlements, the learning and development coordinator position, and then the increase for public safety hirings. And I will kick it over to Melissa for the personnel benefits budget.
I don't want to steal Harry's thunder, so why don't we
let's
keep
hold.
rolling with HR?
Okay.
Yeah, do we
let's
want to
hold
do
off on
the
that.
HR budget first and vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm doing the HR budget report, which is fairly straightforward. Anne went over the numbers for the HR department. Like all the departments, it's seeing some reduction, and we need that to happen. So it is. It makes sense. We reviewed the budget for the HR department. The one thing that we discussed was the fact that much of the training is now online, and you know, we kicked back and forth whether the online training is effective or not, but it's certainly cost effective, and I'm not sure, as somebody who's spent a lot of time standing in front of college classrooms, that we get less retention with the HR with the online training than we do with in-person training. But that was that, and there's still some concern on the part of the committee members that there be adequate coverage at town hall during regular business hours of the offices if somebody wanders in and wants to talk to someone. So we talked a little bit about the remote work policies and the fact that HR is emphasizing the fact that there has to be adequate coverage of the offices in town hall. We unanimously voted to approve a $700,131 budget for HR.
All right, so Anne, I assume that you don't have nothing else to add since you already went through your presentation. If I'm wrong, jump in. Otherwise, Harry, let's go to questions or comments from the committee.
Okay, I'm gonna just add something since I'm on the subcommittee. The subcommittee did ask about the HR board. That was the subject of a proposed warrant article some point last year. There are 2 vacancies on the HR board. The town has not filled them, and the members of the subcommittee offered advice on how to advertise some of these vacancies. Michael Berger.
Yes, thank you, Harry. And thank you, Anne and Christine. I have a question about AI.
Okay.
In many businesses and educational institutions, HR is being affected greatly, like Workday as a program, by AI. So the question is, I mean, it's being affected in a positive way in that it's bringing efficiencies. Is the town looking into using AI to increase its efficiency and change the way it does its operations?
So as far as AI goes, the town and the select board passed the AI policy as well as some other technology policies last fall. And we don't have authorization from IT to go forward and use a particular AI function. We do have some AI functions that would be possible using our current contracted services for applicant tracking and things like that. We have not turned those modalities on because we need to go through that review process with IT. We have our employee relations manager is our test pilot with IT using Copilot and ChatGPT to test out use of that for some of the HR functions. But it is on things like, okay, here's a job description, put it into ChatGPT and write us a job ad, which is different than a job description and things like that. So we're testing those things out there. We still physically look at every application that comes in. It is not run through an AI filter in order to pick, folks to be interviewed. So we're keeping our eyes on it, but we haven't sought nor received an endorsement from IT to use a specific AI component.
I appreciate the answer. I think it's a wave that's very powerful across many different businesses, and I hope that the town, IT, the selectmen, whatever you need to work with, whatever group you need to work with, to look into this because it's saving enormous amounts of dollars in various operations. And I think it must be looked at. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Harry Bors, you have a two-finger?
Yeah, just a brief comment. We discussed this somewhat the other day in a subcommittee hearing on IT. And I won't go into all the details. When IT is here, they can discuss it in depth. But IT is looking at it. They're looking at each department. They have, as Anne referred to, test pilots that they're working with, different types of AI. And I know an issue that we have in our institution where we've had to shut down its use in certain places is with certain AI, anything you do goes into the public domain. So they're sort of considering that, but IT is actively looking at this and how to use it productively within town. And when we take up the IT budget, you can ask those questions because there's a lot of answers that will be given.
Michael?
Just a two-finger on that, Harry. There are institutional AI systems that do not go out to the web. They are considered kind of exclusive, and that's something the town should look into. I mean, we're looking at saving a lot of money. That's very important for the town, and I think we should look at this. I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree, and they are looking at crowd systems also, so they're doing that. But Fung can give us a better update. But yeah,
thank you, Susan Granoff.
Hi. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you, Anne, for all that you do. And one question I have concerns the appearance of some frequent turnover in department heads. And perhaps it may simply be a very small sample that I'm reacting to. The subcommittee I chair we're responsible for 5 departments. And in the last 4 years or so, I have dealt with 11 different department heads of those 5 departments. 2 involved retirements of long-term employees, but 2 also involved 3 department heads and a short-term stay for a couple of them. And so I'm wondering, is there a pattern? Are we seeing more and more department heads leaving for a variety of reasons? Is this something we need to be concerned about? Are we aware of, other than retirement, are there other reasons for these departures? Because some of the people have been exceptional public servants, and there definitely is a loss when people who have performed well leave for a variety of reasons. So that's my first question. Is this a pattern? Or am I just extrapolating from a small sample?
Yes and yes. So you're the Human Services Subcommittee Chair, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where we've seen changes, obviously we had retirements of folks like Pat Maloney and those kind of long-standing folks. The challenges that we have are, if you look at, Ruth Ann was here for 40 years. Obviously, Pat helped out with Swanee and then helped out during COVID and those kind of things. What I will say is it's generational in many ways, in that folks don't stay for 30 years in the same job and the same employer as much as they used to. And for me, if we prepare someone for their next and bigger chapter, well, by working with us in Brookline, that is a service that we are doing to both Brookline and the next community. And on the receiving end, we steal quite a few people from other places too. So, I take that as being successful, is that if we've given someone the knowledge and the experience to grow their wings into a different role that is bigger. You think of what Sigal Reese is doing now for the state and coordinating collaboration, then that to me is a win. it is a loss for us as Brookline, but we, we promoted from within to have John Klaczynski, take on the role. If you think about recreation, we brought somebody back who started his career in Brookline Rec and is now the rec director. And so there are some really great stories. I would say we're not seeing a turnover for, to the extent I can call it, negative reasons. We just, it's the nature of employees in 2026, but also we are preparing them for their next chapter. And that's kudos to, the town itself, as well as all of you on the call. So.
Okay. And as a follow-up, how long does it typically take to find a replacement for them? Are certain departments harder to replace than others, or do you now have a set time that you allow for hiring process to take place? And does it typically take, say, 4 months or longer or more time, or is it strictly specific to that particular department?
If we are looking for an external replacement, so think library versus public health, right? It's going to take longer because we've got to do the recruitment process, make sure that we've got a good candidate pool. And sometimes the candidate pool can really depend on the time of year that you're going out to recruit. If you think on the other side of the house with public schools, you don't go searching for a high-level public schools person in October and November because they're at their school for the school year. So looking at that timing as well, you don't go after finance people in, April, May, and June, because they're doing the budget in their community and they don't want to leave that community high and dry. So we look at timing, if we've got to go out and recruit for those kind of things. I would say at minimum, if we're doing an open sort of cold recruit where we don't promote from within, we're probably looking at 4 months minimum, assuming we end up with a successful pool in the first round of advertising. And we do general advertising like Mass Municipal Association and putting it on the town's page, as well as reaching out to specialty, recruitment pages, so that it's getting to the folks that are the right folks to see it.
Okay, that's really helpful. Also, the other thing that would be helpful would be if it's possible to let us know when you've received notice of a forthcoming change, because sometimes we learn about it just when we're holding a public hearing on their budget. And it's not always great to be taken by surprise because it really is something that we need to have a better understanding of and prepare for when we are considering our questions that we're trying to find out information about. So if we could have just some advance notice of that, that would be helpful so that we feel we're part of the loop.
We can work on that. I know that Chaz usually does an announcement to the select board, during meetings when it has been made public. We let the, we let the department head talk to their internal folks first, or their, supporting boards and commissions before it goes to full select board and the public more broadly. But we can look to make sure that that's in the loop. But I know that it usually ends up in the town administrator newsletter, as well as, an announcement at select board meetings. And I know you folks do a lot with all of your subcommittees and spend a lot of time. So maybe watching the select board meetings on top of AC might be more than the pale. So
plus we meet at the same time. So there's that.
True.
Yeah, but yeah, just a heads up that whenever it's the people who needed to know first have been informed, if someone could just let us know, because that way we just have a better appreciation of what we're going to be dealing with in the coming year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Janice Khan.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you. And so I had a question, but now I have a comment and a question based on something that you said. So I'm really delighted that you actually look at applications that come to the town. I know that for this generation, it is very frustrating to be kicked out of a system by a bot, you know, because there's just the wrong word put in an application or something, and that it's filtered out, you know, when we might be actually missing somebody who has real value and talent and energy, exactly the kind of person we'd like to be working in the town. So I'm really glad that you're doing that. Is that that the numbers are such that you're able to really go through them all, or are you finding that we're getting a lot of applications to Brookline?
We ironically, we get a lot of applications for like part-time library assistants, and we'll get like 150 of them. And so I don't know that staff at libraries gets through 150. They usually, you know, within a pool, try to find a good group of folks. But for example, you know, my process is that I look every day. If I've got a job posting that's open, I look at the applications every day and I grade them. ABCX, you know, is how that goes. But I do that for a living, so I sort of know I can go through fairly quickly what I need to look for. We do get a lot of applications. I would say we don't get as many qualified applications, you know, as we would like. But you know, we do get folks that bring an array of interest. And then there are some that are hard to fill. And some of that's due to salaries. So think HVAC techs, you know, Charlie Simmons's world. And that's, you know, the tough skill sets. So we have to really dig in on how we advertise and recruit for those.
Okay, thank you. My actual initial question I wanted to ask was about the reduction in legal services. So is that because legal department is now doing more of that work, or what happens if you reduce the funding for that? Does that mean that you're not engaged as much in doing that work, or?
So we had to do a reduction because of this is a no override budget. So that was where the reduction was, most of the reduction was taken, the largest chunk. We do have a new Labor and Employment Council. And I will say that, you know, if we are looking for a bright light in all that is going on at 1600 Pennsylvania, it is that we have at least 2 employees that we have gotten from the feds because they accessed those folks out. So our new Labor and Employment Council used to be in General Counsel's office for HUD in the Northeast region, and our leave and disability specialists, the folks who do our workers' comp, had 16 years with the state of Massachusetts at DIA, and then did 17 years for workers' comp at the feds. And then he got dripped, so he's working for us now with 30 years experience. So yay for us.
Yay for Brookline. Thank you very much, Ann.
Harry Grossman.
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So if you're cutting from legal services, does that mean you have to go outside for potentially for more services? And then my other question was on the decrease in medical services, injured on duty expenses. Could you talk more about that?
That's the personnel benefits. So the reduction in our legal services budget is for outside investigation, for arbitrations, and for any sort of settlements related to employment cases, so MCAD cases, that kind of thing. If we spend more than that, we will be coming to see you for a reserve fund transfer if we are operating in a no override situation. You know, we use the resources now that we have a new Labor and Employment Council, but there are some things that are either more complex or more high risk that we would look to bring in outside counsel to do, either an outside investigator to do an investigation as opposed to doing it in-house. So.
Okay, thank you.
Liz Linder.
Oh, my comment is long gone and it was covered.
Okay, thank you. John Doggett.
Hi, and thank you, Harry. My question is going to follow on from Janice's and Perry's comment on, or question and comment on the legal services. I'm a little concerned about this. I'm looking at the budget here. The actual amount we spent in FY25 was $121,000. And the proposal is the budget in FY26 was $127,000. That's been cut back to $72,000. I'm worried that exactly what's going to happen is that the reserve fund transfer is going to be heading our way. Is there any reason to be optimistic that settlements and arbitration awards are going to be substantially less than they were in FY25? Anne?
Can I actually respond to this one, if you don't mind? So John, when we created the position in town council's office, we had left legal services and HR untouched, and knowing that at some point we would look to reduce legal services once we were fully integrated with the town council's office. So, you know, given the override environment, we made the reduction. We don't have the luxury of being able to carry this. So it really is going to be, you know, the coordination between HR and legal is going to be very important in order to try and stay within that budget. That's essentially what we're hoping will happen with that reduction.
Okay, thank you.
And to just follow up on that, before you get on to your next question, we also had some extensive need during that time, even though we had in-house labor and employment, due to some outside cases that were significant, to use that funding to do outside investigations, even though we had Labor and Employment Council.
Okay, thank you. I may have missed this, so it's just really an explanation of on your slides on the FY27 budget. I think the line item is public safety medical expenses go from 350,000 to 0. Could you just clarify that for me?
We can cover
That
that
is
when,
Melissa.
when we talk about benefits. I'll make sure that we talk about that line item.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Neil Gordon.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I share the same concern that to the extent that we have a line item in the budget that is contingent upon outside events over which we have little control, if in fact we think that it has been you know, generously funded, budgeted in the past, and we don't need it, then cutting it back seems fine. But to cut it back because it's there, and you know, it's the easier one versus, you know, an employee or a part-time employee, you know, that's harder. But it's just a bit concerning to hear that, well, we've cut it back, and so we've increased the likelihood that we're going to be coming for a reserve fund transfer, because the reserve fund isn't designed to pick up the extra volume. You know, I'd like to know that the, you know, any reduction is because we either have funded too much in the past, which is fine, and you know, scale that back. But, you know, wishing that things happen that we have little control over sort of is concerning, as I said.
I share your concern. You know, we have both a personnel reduction, which I talked about that we had done preemptively in 26, and it's in the 27 budget. Where we looked at making this choice was around most of what we do is required. It's compliance. And making the reduction in the legal services budget is the line item that has the least impact on the services that we're required to provide. And you know, our goal is to work with Melissa and Barry, who's our in-house Labor and Employment Council, that we don't need a reserve fund transfer. but, and we've moved money around in the past to sort of even out accounts, you know, in the spring. But that was the line item that would result in the least damage to the services if we end up with no override.
And I just also want to remind you that we also have a vacant position in HR generalist, that when that gets filled, that will help with the capacity for investigations as well, which will bring down those costs.
Neil, are you set? Okay, Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Thanks. This is changing the subject, but you had quite a significant number of trainings in your budget. And I'm just wondering, can you generally just characterize what those trainings are about?
So, both under a bylaw that was passed, we're required to make sure that every employee gets a copy of the harassment, discrimination, and retaliation policy. In addition, the state ethics commission requires that all employees within their first 30 days and twice every other year do the hour-long ethics training, as well as the annual acknowledgement for ethics. So instead of sending the information out by paper to new employees and handing them 100 pages of paper, and having folks use the state website to do their ethics compliance, we have a module called NeoGov Learn that allows us to send this out to every employee through their email address. And so each employee completed 3 hours of training this fall that included their ethics quiz, the ethics acknowledgement, sexual harassment policy sign-off, as well as an hour-long training on sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. They had to sign off on the political activity policy, on the AI policies and the IT policies, as well as the EEO policy. And so instead of handing these out via paper or sending them out in the mail to everyone, which we used to do before when I came here to start with, we now do that online. So we're not paying postage, we're not paying copying, and we have an online record for potentially discipline purposes to say, yes, you received this, you acknowledge that you know it. And to both the Harry's, point during our subcommittee meeting, that doesn't guarantee that they remember it in real time, but it also allows them to go back and look at it whenever they want, because they can go on there. In addition, we've used, there are over 1,500 training opportunities, from as short as 4 minutes to as long as an hour, that come in the library of trainings. We've had folks take training on how to parent and work from home, how to balance stress, anger management, how to lead a team, how to collaborate on a team. Some of our departments have used them for specific trainings, and we can also add training modules. So if there's something that's, for example, a TED Talk or a YouTube video, we can actually add that as a training for our employees, and connect with other training platforms to add content. So it does provide us the opportunity, when we're fully staffed, we have 7 people. And with 7 people, there's no way we could do 9,800 trainings.
Mm-hmm.
You'd never see us.
To your point about the compliance being most of your work too. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much.
David Mark.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not trying to suggest that you take on added responsibilities, but I am curious as to whether you and your office have any input or participation in the school union's negotiation with the school committee.
We do not.
So it's entirely separate.
Yes.
And I should know this, but I just thought of this question now and I haven't had a chance to research this. Why is every other contract required to go before town meeting before it's valid, but the school budget is, the school union contract is not. Is that state law?
It is, and the contract for the unions related to the school department are between the school committee and the unions. They're not between the town of Brookline writ large and the unions. And
Even
that's
though
the
they're
difference.
town employees and they use taxpayer funds to pay them, it's just state law?
It is, and just like you can only vote on the bottom line for the school department budget, and you can't go in there and mess around with the lines and change things.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis, that's it.
Great. Thank you. So we'll take a motion from the subcommittee.
Subcommittee moves favorable action on the HR budget of $700,131.
Second.
Great, thank you. I will share my screen. So we're voting on whether to recommend favorable action on the fiscal year 27 HR department budget of $700,131. Michael Berger.
Dennis, I just have a clarification. This budget is presented as a no override budget. That's right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, I vote yes.
Harry Bors.
Yes.
Cliff Brown.
Yes.
Anthony Buono.
I don't think he's here.
Elise Couture Stone.
Yes.
John Doggett.
Yes.
Harry Friedman.
Yes.
David Mark Goldstein.
Yes.
Neil Gordon.
Yes.
Susan Granoff.
Yes.
Perry Grossman.
Yes.
Kelly Hardebeck.
I don't think she's here.
Elisa Jonas. Not here.
No, she is here.
All right. Well, we'll come back to her. Janice Kahn.
Yes.
Brian Ladd.
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz.
Yes.
Carol Levin.
Yes.
Liz Linder.
Yes.
Pam Lodish.
She is not here.
Jocelyn Murphy.
She has left.
Okay. Donnell O'Neill.
Yes.
Linda Olson Pelkey.
Yes.
Fran Perler.
Yes.
David Pollock.
He is not here.
Carlos Ridwejo.
Yes.
Margaret Robotham.
Yes.
Lee Selwyn.
Yes.
Christine Westfall.
Yes.
And Elisa Jonas. All right. Well,
She's here.
All right, bye.
She's muted.
a vote of 22 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. We're recommending favorable action on the HR department non-override. No override budget. So let's move on to Harry to discuss the personnel benefits budget.
Okay.
One quick comment on this. My understanding from the presentation, and Liz can correct me if I'm wrong, on the potential for overrides was that the most that would be added to this budget is about $10,000 in services money if the override passed.
The one we
So
just
it's
voted
not-
on, Christine?
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't expect that there'll be a major change in this budget, override or no override.
Yep, that's correct.
Dennis, Elisa votes yes in the chat.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Harry, go ahead.
Okay, do you want Melissa to throw up her slides first, or I can just have her spackle in afterwards?
Why don't you set the overview and then
Yeah,
she
let me
can,
run
I'll
through it.
make her a co-host while
Yeah,
you're
make her
talking.
co-host because there's one slide I want her to pull up at the end because I neglected to put in the table, which would be helpful just to look at, but I'll go through it. So this is the employee benefits section. It's also what's referred to as a budget buster. It's a personnel benefits line item, but in fact, it's several benefits in there. Most of these are either required by law. Think of things like Medicare payroll tax, or the result of agreements that we've entered into. Think of healthcare that we provide. but it comes to a large number, 100,352,574, and that is about a quarter of our operating budget. So it's real money. It's up 11% from last year. That's a $9.6 million increase. And I won't go into every little thing, but let me just touch on a couple of the bigger ones. So the pension is big. This year we'll be allocating $41.2 million to the pension. So it's real money. As it now stands, not as of this minute, we'll have to get a reevaluation, but as of our last numbers, our pension is 72.8% funded. We still have an obligation of almost $178 million that we have to take care of. We've had this on a schedule to have full funding by 2030. And so we've been doing pretty well with it. We assume a rate of 6.8% on this fund. The last couple of years, you know, some of us in our 401ks may have been enjoying double-digit increases. And the pensions may have been doing well also, but it has to take things into account for the long arc. So with the 6.8%, it sort of evens out the bumps as you move forward, and we'll see what the next valuation is. But in 2030, and this leads to the OPEBs, traditionally what we've discussed is after 2030, we would take that runoff and we would apply it to the OPEBs, which are the ongoing healthcare obligations after people retire. And that's a substantial liability also. Right now, it is nearly $190 million that's outstanding. And it's sort of been sacrosanct that that's what was going to happen. Recently, some comments have been made either directly or obliquely that, well, perhaps, you know, once we retire our obligation to the pension, we're going to free up all this money and we'll, you know, it's going to take care of our financial woes. Whether we use that money in all or in part to do that. But what that would also mean is reducing what had been the anticipated commitment to the OPEBs. And when we had our conversations, we discussed this with Melissa, and she, you know, signaled caution on this, that this is a big obligation and you ignore it at your peril. And so we may be having this conversation down the road a bit because it is a big obligation that is still out there. The other big item in here is our healthcare. This year, we're allocating $47.6 million to that. Again, it is substantial. We're anticipating the rates, the GIC rates, to go up 12%. The absolute number isn't here yet. Most of the people that we're carrying on our health account are retirees, not active employees. So it's mostly retired people. And that imbalance will probably increase into the future. And I see that there's a question from Dennis. Do you want to throw it out there now?
Well, sure. I was going to ask what unemployment compensation came from, why it came from nothing over the last few years to $500,000 now.
But let me clarify. There are
Yep.
3 items in this grouping that are actually not expenditure histories. Those are transfers to trust funds that we have. So we have a
Okay.
trust fund for public safety IOD. We have a trust fund for unemployment compensation, and we have a trust fund for workers' comp. And so
Okay.
what we try and do with the funding level for those trusts is make sure that we have at least a year of expenditure history in the fund balance to make sure that we're kind of covered for the full year. So if I were to scroll down here, you would see the workers' comp trust fund. I think that's the first one that comes. So right now the balance is about $1.5 million, and the expenses are 2.1. So we've got 2.2 coming in as the appropriation. The fund balance should cover any overages that happen during the year. Same thing with the public safety IOD. There's about, over $750,000 of fund balance. So that's why there's not a recommended appropriation, because the expenses in the IOD trust fund have been hovering around $300,000. So we should be covered for at least a year, maybe 2 years, and then we'll look to maybe replenish that the following year. By moving some of the other funding levels around. Unemployment, we did have a bad year during COVID where we had a spike, but then we did get reimbursement from ARPA, not from ARPA, from the state COVID funds that helps replenish the overall fund balance in the fund. I am starting to see a draw on that this year in particular. I'm watching that pretty closely, and hoping that the 500 that we're going to be putting in there in fiscal 27 will cover us, but that might be something that we might need to make further adjustments on.
Thank you.
Okay, so one thing that I'll just mention quickly, because it's likely to come up, people always ask about this or mention it, is with our healthcare, that our split is we pay 83% of the healthcare insurance and our employees 17%. And that's about the best deal going in the state. It also makes it rather expensive. We negotiated that in order to go into the GIC years ago, which did save us a lot of money. A couple of years ago, we actually looked out to see if there were better rates if we were not in the GIC. And I think we were finding that there weren't really good competitive rates at that time. So it still was valuable to stay in the GIC. But we do have, we do spend more on healthcare than a lot of other municipalities do. The one other item I'm going to mention, which is not in here and it's not in the charts, or you won't see it anywhere. It's not completely out of left field, because the original draft I sent to Ann and Melissa had it in highlight just to mention it and sort of ask about it. Is a couple of years what we were discussing was there was a lot of pent-up vacation time that could be cashed in. And we had a concern about it. I think a couple of years ago, we looked at it and there was a potential $4 million worth in liability. And we put some money into a fund. In the last couple of years, we haven't been putting more in there. And I know some of these issues have been negotiated through later contractual costs, but it's just a reminder that we're looking at big expenses here. We're looking at big obligations like our OPEBs, like our pension, like our health care. And there's other obligations that are hanging out there also that they don't go away. And eventually we have to consider them, even if this year we're not looking to fund them. So I don't know that there's much more to add to that. If people have questions, and you can see everything broken out in the chart that's on the screen here. And the subcommittee is recommending favorable action on the appropriation of $100,352,574.
Just wanted to add one other thing. Today, the GIC did take a vote on rates, and the rates are going to be a little bit better than what we have anticipated in the budget. I still need to analyze the impact. But we were at Women Leading Government Conference today, so I wasn't able to get to it today, but I'm hoping to get to that after dealing with the warrant tomorrow. So we will likely see a little bit of relief, and I'll send a memo to the advisory committee on what the change post GIC will be. So that will hopefully provide a little bit of relief to some of the reductions that we've made.
Okay, so the pizza budget's back. That's what you're saying.
Maybe.
But to be clear, it was only the pepperoni we were talking about.
Dennis, are we ready for questions?
Yes,
or?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Thanks. I'm kind of trying to square the picture here, because Harry said that most of the health insurance money goes to our retirees, and yet if they're 65 or older, they're on Medicare. I always find this so confusing. And so I don't understand, are we paying Medicare premiums for people? Or is this supplemental insurance? And what is the Medicare coverage in the line item on the budget actually referring to? Thank you.
So we do pay for Medicare. There are supplement plans that are in the budget, and then there's also a reimbursement for employees. And I don't know if you can describe that probably better than I can.
So the group health covers the retirees supplemental health insurance. So that's your prescriptions and the Part Ds or the CD or whatever the combinations are right now. And then the Medicare coverage is the contribution that's taken out of active employees to pay Medicare to the feds.
So wait, we're paying that, or the employee is paying?
There's an employer contribution that has to go. But the other part of that is for retirees that have their supplement plan through us, they get a Part B reimbursement throughout the year. And that is not, I'm not sure where that's accounted for, Melissa, for the retiree Medicare reimbursement.
So you mean that is paying
included? That is included in the group health line.
Okay.
So that is paying the Medicare premiums.
It provides a reimbursement for the standard amount that Part B costs our retirees.
And is this
some folks pay more, some folks pay less, but they get a fixed rate per month.
And so is this all because of our contracts and negotiations with the unions, or is this just across the board, everybody gets this?
No, that's our agreement through the PEC, which is our collaborative bargaining for health insurance under the GIC.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. In the context of going out and asking the voters to approve an override, and increasing property taxes accordingly, and also in the context of union negotiation, I find myself, I think, more and more frustrated that the town's share of health insurance benefit is expressed as a percentage and not expressed in dollars, because no change is a significant increase in the cost to the town. And when you go out and have to include that in an override, and I'm not taking position one way or the other on the override in this conversation, but when you go out and then ask the taxpayers for an override, in fact, the taxpayers have to pay the increase in their own health insurance, and then they have to pay 83% of the increase in the cost of the employee's health insurance. But yet, when we go, I suspect, to a union negotiation, keeping the 83% the same is considered to be no change, but in fact, it's a significant benefit, additional benefit. In the cost to the town is mirrored in the benefit to the employee. And I think that from a negotiating point of view and otherwise, and it's something I have at least a little bit of union negotiating experience, that I would way rather see a fixed dollar amount, because, as I said, the taxpayers are paying for their own and the increase. And what we see as no change, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, what we see as no change is a big change. And I just like to have that on the table as dollars rather than percentage.
So if all of the employees and the retirees had the exact same plan, then that would be easier to be able to say, okay, this represents, $1 million.
So retirees are to be fair, retirees are a different category.
Correct.
And whatever their
but
deal is their deal is.
Right. But they, the retirees are represented in the employee committee that negotiates health benefits. So their rate of payment is also negotiated, and there's representation on that employee committee. But in this case, either way, if you only had one plan, like you got Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's what everybody got. You got no choices, you know, vanilla all the way across. It would be easier to produce the dollar amount because there are 7 active employee plans and 3 retiree plans that folks can choose from. It is hard to say what that amount is without just talking
So
about the
you're saying we,
percentages.
in the context of a union negotiation, we can't say you get this much pay and you get this much dollar amount of benefit for health insurance?
No.
We can't say that? There's no way to say that we'll pay the first X dollars and you pay everything after that?
No, because you have some employees who are single and some that are family. So you've got a different amount. And the requirements under the GIC and the PEC agreement, and this is not just Brookline specific, is you have to define what the percent is that that the employer pays and what the employee pays, and that collaborative negotiation, which is outside the traditional collective bargaining agreement, they take a vote on that. And currently, the BEU representing teachers and the other part, teachers, unit A, B, and C, represent 55% of the total weighted vote. Retirees is 10%, and then everybody else is in the rest of that mix. And so unless and until there's a vote by the PEC to make that change for percentages, we are where we are. But the dollar amount becomes a challenge because of the different sort of states of employees, because we take them as we get them.
Whatever ends up being expressed because it's required to be expressed as a percentage, I'm fine with that. But I find it hard to believe that we can't, in the case of the schools, for example, it's a very big number, that we can't reduce that to a dollar amount and say, by the way, that's how much the town can put on the table, and negotiate from there and then convert it back to a percentage as is. But I just find that when we start at 83% and say anything less than that is a change, keeping it at 83% is a huge change in the benefit to the employee and the cost to the town. I find it hard to believe that we can't express that as a dollar amount.
I understand your frustration.
I have a 2-finger question on that. And there are how many active employee health plans? There are like 4 or 6?
There are, hold on one second. There are, set it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there are
8.
4 retiree plans.
Okay, so let's keep it simple. On the 8 active employees, and assume for the moment everybody in the plans was single, just to make it all even. I'm assuming of those 8, some of them cost the town, some of them are more expensive than others.
Correct.
And so so do we pay 83% of each, or do we pay everybody 83% of the highest?
No, it's 83% of each.
Okay.
So we'll have a rate sheet next week sometime that'll show the breakdown of what the town will pay and what the employee will pay under the new rates for fiscal 27. And it's broken out by the plan option as well as individual and family. And you can see the amount, that the town pays if you're using Harvard Pilgrim Quality versus Harvard Pilgrim Explorer. And predominantly, there are some of these options that are only available in Western Mass. So you won't see Health New England with much employee representation unless we have folks that live far away. But you'll see folks in Harvard Pilgrim, you'll see them in Mass General Brigham and WellPoint are the three main options. And then there's one for like outside New England and international, and things like that, that they're defined as far as the geographic location. So we can get you the rate sheets when they're done, so you can take a look at that, and you may have more questions, you may have less, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it'll give you some more detail if you want it.
And we
So
could
for the-
we could rerun the analysis on what a shift in the percentage would be, like what that would save. I think that's
Right.
really what Neil's looking for.
Right, but that's not what Harry's looking for. Harry has a much simpler question, which is for the employees who are located in Eastern Massachusetts, assuming if the employee is only paying 17% of the premium, there's very little incentive, I imagine, to go into a cheaper plan on the assumption that the more expensive the plan is, the higher quality it is.
The plans provide what are called narrow and broad scope. We traditionally will see for narrow scope, we will see younger single people do that because they go for maybe they go for their annual physical, but other than that, they don't really use health insurance. And those are the folks that are coming right off of, they've just turned 26 and they have to pick up their own insurance because they're not on their parents anymore. And they'll look at that. And we as HR cannot give them any guidance at all, including these are the ones that are most subscribed. We can show them the rates. We have the book that defines what the benefits are for the particular plans, and they need to make a decision based on who their primary care is and what they think their needs are. And then an annual enrollment, if they're going to change, they can make that change knowing what's going on. They're going to have a baby, so they want the higher end plan because they're going to have neonatal or they're going to have whatever. And it's up to them to make those changes. But the individual rates run from $830 a month up to $1,700.
Okay.
Based on the different plans, and it gives you different things based on those rates.
Okay. Thank you. Elisa Jonas. Elisa Jonas going once, twice, thrice. We'll move on to Michael Berger.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Harry. I have a question. How does our plan and our percentage, which seems very large, 80% plus, compared to other communities like Arlington, Newton, around us? Are we way out of whack, or are we in line with other communities?
We are one of the highest, if not the highest. Actually, we're one of the highest because there is one that does 90-10. As far as employer pay-ins through GIC. And that was negotiated when we went into GIC, the percentage was part of that. That was before I was here, and Melissa can make any sort of added detail to that, but that was the deal, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean,
Back
at the time we saved $5 million to enter the GIC, and the percentage shift was viewed as kind of the mechanism to get us there. The threshold for entering the GIC was also different when we entered, and then the law changed a few years after we were in, and it made it easier for municipalities to enter. So hindsight obviously is 2020, and maybe we wouldn't have made that deal had the threshold been a little bit different for us to enter. But that is, obviously it's a generous benefit, and we always make that argument when we are negotiating salaries and kind of explaining the full compensation and benefits that employees get. But it is a very difficult point to negotiate with the Public Employee Committee because we do need them to take the vote in order to make a change.
So it's a little like Dante, you know, the entry is easy, getting out, not so much. So is there any way that this can be, you know, renegotiated? What would be involved?
We are discussing this, and I think it's really about, you know, they're going to want something in exchange for lowering the percentage because they're going to see this as a reduction in pay.
Thank you.
Elisa Jonas.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm struggling with my phone here. So two questions. And also the other thing is, I think, was someone saying that Neil was asking about what the actual cost difference is for every percentage? Because I think Chaz, I had asked that when Chaz was there, and I think Chaz said it was $400,000 per percent.
Yeah, now that we have new rates, I'd want to rerun the analysis and just confirm what the shift would be.
Yeah, okay. So have I understood this correctly? We cover for retired people, Medicare Part B and the supplemental and the prescription drug. We cover the whole thing for them. Did I get that right? No. Okay.
So the retirees get a reimbursement for their Part B.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get they have the rates that are offered for the Medicare plans. Based on the plan that they choose, there are established proportional pay similar to the 8317. There are some that are 65-35, and there's some that are the 8317. And it depends on what they choose and where they live. And they could choose to not get their supplemental plans through the town, but
it's probably the best deal, right?
Well, unless somebody's getting it for a donut, I don't know that you know, that's happening.
So how do we? So for employees, we're paying a lot. How is it for retirees? Have we looked at the other 351 communities and see how we compare on that?
The 8317 is similarly high for retirees as it is for employees. There are a lot of different arrangements that the PECs have made for retirees as their benefits of the bargain. Under the rules set up by the state, retirees as a block get a 10% vote, regardless of what their proportionality is.
Not sure I got that, but so, but how high, where are we on that level of benefits? Do you compare to the other communities? Do you have any sense? Are we?
We're still fairly high. I don't
so
know.
I know we're second. Yes.
So
was that also part of the deal?
We're still high. Yes.
So what if we so going to the 13%, have we tried to negotiate giving people a larger boost in salary versus the 83%, or has there been a calculation that it will cost the town more money to increase the salary proportionately? I don't know how that, has anyone done that analysis?
We're looking at that now as we go through sort of being in sort of the fiscal situation that we're in. We're looking at, okay, what is the cost to an employee, individual, family, regardless, you know, and the different plans that are available for a 1% change. And we'll do that analysis, provide it to the PEC for them to look at and, you know, have that negotiation of potentially, if there's a savings by making that change, what happens to that savings? Does it go into the collective bargaining reserve? You know, it still has to go through the split, those kind of things.
So you haven't considered, did I understand you right, that you're not, that they're under consideration would not be increasing salaries in exchange?
Well, if we increase our collective bargaining reserve, it allows us to do a higher increase in
No, okay, okay, yeah, I guess. Okay, well, thank you very much. You've had to give a lot of answers tonight.
Linda Olson Pelkey.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Elisa's question about the Part B reimbursement. Is that also commonly done in other communities?
Not always.
So this is another thing that we're pretty much an outlier in our generosity on this topic. And by the reimbursement, I understand it to be the base level Medicare premium that you reimburse. Okay, thank you.
Chris Westfall.
I just want to make a quick comment, particularly as it applies to retirees. My mother was a school teacher in New Jersey and was reimbursed completely for the cost of Medicare in retirement in New Jersey. Every time Medicare went up, her check got bigger from the state to cover it. And so when we talk about wanting to negotiate, we have to be cognizant of the fact that 55% of the people in our system are educators, and those educators are not only looking at what other communities in our state do, they're looking at what other communities nationwide do. And so it's not, you know, we're not in a vacuum here. And I just want to make that clear to everybody.
Thank you. Harry Bors.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think, and this is sort of Christine's point, I suppose, tangentially, is that this is a benefit that people have, and it's a benefit of value, and trying to claw that back is very difficult. To take, you know, if you're on the other side of it, the way you see it is you're taking something away. And that's difficult. And I understand the frustration. We've been frustrated with this for as long as we've had this level of split. To Elisa's notion of, well, is there another way to incentivize it, maybe through their salary? Keep in mind, once you do it in salary, you're building up the base, and then that translates into costs in your pension. Some institutions, rather than doing it as salary, do it as a bonus, which doesn't go into the base for the calculation of the pension. And you look out a few years and say, what is the value of the savings, not just to the town, the value to the savings of the employee over number of years X, and you pay that upfront as a bonus. It is a hit upfront as a bonus. The incentive to the employees being they get that money upfront to do with as they please. And if it is equal to several years worth, it may be people who are going to be retiring. It may be people who figure they're going to be moving out of state, whatever it is. But then you get to where you've negotiated to make that change, and 5, 10, 15 years out, then the town starts to realize the benefit of it. And the town really has to look at a longer arc than an individual does. So there are a number of other ways to possibly address this, but we don't need to sort of get into the nitty-gritty here. But to Elisa's point, if you do it as salary, there are other costs in other directions too. So it's not a cat that's easy to skin.
Thank you. Margaret.
Yes, Harry made some excellent points. The only thing I'll add from my background as a consultant is what we would always advise clients was to expect to spend 30 to 50% of an employee's pay on turnover. So if there were to ever be a decision that we were to make, and I'm not saying we should make a decision either way, these are all excellent questions, and I'm glad Linda and everybody else is bringing them up. If we were to make a decision and we were to expect there to be turnover, if you were to model that out, a really conservative estimate would be 30 to 50%. So if you have an employee who cost $100,000 and you were to expect to see 20% turnover, you would expect per employee $30,000 to $50,000 per employee to have to go recruit new people, have to train them up, lost productivity, etc.
Thank you. Dennis, I think that is it on questions and comments.
All right, so we'll take a motion from the subcommittee for the personnel benefits budget.
Yep, we move 100 million, 100,352,574.
Dennis, Melissa, when we get the final numbers, do we need to revote this?
We'll take
Yeah,
care of
we
it
will.
when you do your omnibus vote. We'll make sure we've got the right number in there.
Okay, thank you.
She'll give us a table spreadsheet that will bear a remarkable but not identical resemblance to what we voted on throughout these votes. All right, so the main motion is favorable action on the personal benefits budget, 100,352,574. Michael?
Abstain.
Harry B.
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Harry F.
Yes.
David Mark?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Elisa?
Yes.
Janice?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alec?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Donnell?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Carlos?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Lee? Christine?
Yes.
All right, and if Lee is here, he can.
He was going in and all night. I don't know if it was
Right.
technical issues, but does not appear to be here now.
All right, 21 to 0 to 1, favorable action. Thank you very much to the subcommittee. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Melissa. I think we're done with you. We have one more. We have one more item on our agenda tonight, which is a probably somewhat brief, but comments on the warrant. We distributed the warrant articles. We sent out the announcement last week of what subcommittees would be hearing, which articles. We asked for some, feedback or concerns from various subcommittees, questions about how to achieve the proper level of vetting, try to work on the schedule. We've made some changes already to the schedule. One change we need to announce is that the 2 warrant articles that relate to ICE, whose numbers I do not remember, but I can look up in a second, will, instead of being heard only by Human Services, will be heard by an ad hoc that is Human Services and Public Safety, that Susan has agreed to chair, as I understand. If you haven't, I've seen a lot of scheduling already start taking place for the articles, which is great. Harry, you had at least one question about the upcoming schedule for next week with respect to warrant articles. Do you want to get that on the table?
Yeah, although Elise, could you confirm which subcommittee you're on? Is it just schools?
Yes, right now I'm just on schools, but I also requested land use.
I know that. Thank you so much. We've gotten a bit of an issue. On March 10, which is next Tuesday, we're not doing the budget for the finance department, so that just left Wooden Bark and compensating balances, which should take about 7.5 minutes. So we're going to skip next Tuesday, March 10. But on Thursday, March 12, we had special appropriations closeout, which is about a 5 to 10 minute discussion, and warrant article 13 extending the town clerk's hours. But the town clerk is out of town, and Neil's A&F committee has not yet scheduled anything and will not be doing that next Thursday. And it really doesn't seem to make any sense next Thursday to meet just to do special appropriations. And I'm not sure it makes any sense to do wood and bark compensating balances and special appropriations. So that's a 15-minute meeting. So Dennis, I think we're not meeting again until Tuesday, the 17th.
Unless there's any other, anybody wants to volunteer something that could move forward.
We could talk about wood and bark for 2 hours.
Well, I refuse to do that.
I'd rather discuss the hyphen and bylaw again.
Yes.
Well, that certainly would give committees a free
We'll give them 2 nights,
slate
Tuesday
next-
and Thursday to
to
meet. So that
meet.
would, we should definitely be trying to
Probably-
schedule. Go ahead.
Right. You probably can't notice the Tuesday one in time, right? Maybe tomorrow?
If you get
You
it
could
in
notice it tomorrow.
Yeah, early tomorrow.
Yeah, you can do it for Tuesday night. So this means we're not meeting until the 17th. The 17th, we're scheduled to do police and IT. And we actually have rooms. And so if we chose to meet in person on the 17th, we would have stuff to do and we could meet at town hall.
Yeah, well, we have the room. I think we should meet at town hall if we can't, if for people who can make it there. And we should move, we should do the police IT and we should knock off the formulaic ones that were the pro forma ones that we were going to do next week.
Okay, so we will do wood and bark, compensating balances and appropriation closeout on the 17th. And when we say a live meeting, it's technically a hybrid meeting.
Yes. There are always people that can't make it or have some issue. This is the time for the reminder that says that it's always better. I mean, so what always happens? Subcommittee meets, engages in an extensive back and forth with the petitioners, makes a recommendation, brings it to this body, and a strongly opinionated person on this body who knows something about the issue at hand asks a question to which the subcommittee member stares slack-jawed and says, "Oh, we didn't think of that. I guess we should go back and review it." And I've been there many times myself. And I would like to encourage members here, if they have an interest in some of these articles, attend the subcommittee meeting or get questions sent to the chair before the hearing. And conversely, if there's anything, while we're sitting here now before we adjourn, if there are items on the warrant that you would like a little more clarification of, bring that up now so that we can, even if we can't answer the question, we can start answering the question before the hearings happen over the next couple of weeks.
Dennis, can I just remind you that the order is actually changing? So there,
Oh, right, yes.
there is going to be a slight change. Yeah, the stipend warrant article had 2 different resolutions in it, and the petitioners wanted that to be broken up into 2 articles. So there'll be.
So when will we get the new numbering?
I just sent us a revised index, and the warrant is going to be executed tomorrow. So you'll get it after that.
Okay.
I have a question about I don't know what number it is, the 26 Pleasant Street Jeffrey Allen thing, because we wrote to him asking for a neighborhood meeting, and we were rebuffed, and we were told that well, they can show up to the public hearing. So my question is, what is the notification that's going to happen before our public hearing? For the public, for the people impacted by this potential change?
Can you ask that question?
Before the full AC or before the subcommittee?
Subcommittee.
Well,
If he's making the claim that people will have an opportunity, they will be allowed to come to your public hearing. And I know that the planning department has rules about who gets notified when there is a potential zoning change. So I'm just asking the question, who is going to get notified before we have our public hearing?
Notified by whom?
The town,
Well,
the planning department.
Oh, okay, because by the advisory committee, it's, we
Yeah,
don't.
we never notify
We don't
abutters or
notify.
anything.
I mean, they'll get
The-
notified for the planning board.
Right, they will notify for those hearings, yes, but only if they satisfy certain, constraints. It might not be as large a radius
Right.
as somebody might like.
I think
That's
is
why- or whatever it
necessary.
is.
The immediate abutters, no, that doesn't, I mean, that's something, but I don't think that actually gets at what I'm getting at at
Well, I
all.
think
When
there's a community effort among precincts in this area that are working on putting something like that together, but I think that's a bit different than what you're actually asking, Linda, which is a more of an official date of when the community would be notified. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's less about the date, it's just about them having the knowledge. So I don't know what you're talking about.
So Precinct 2, for instance, is hosting an information session about the 26 Pleasant Street. The date hasn't been set yet, but I know that Precinct 2 and a couple of other precincts surrounding the Pleasant Street development are going to hold similar things. But I guess what I'm getting at is that's more of a community-led mission than what
and
I
it's
think
not a
you're
public
asking.
hearing per se,
Yeah.
which is what
Yeah.
Linda's point is. No, Linda, you're right. We don't have a mechanism for that. And it's an interesting question as to whether for certain items there is a mechanism by which we can notify based on geography.
Can you make it a joint meeting with the planning department and make them notify it?
You mean the planning board?
The planning board, sorry.
You mean our public hearing
Yeah.
No,
that the
I think,
subcommittee's going to hold?
right. I mean, we've
You
never,
want it notified, so.
well, we've never, I mean, for Clark, for example, we didn't notify. For Newbury, Walltower, we didn't notify. I mean, we never notify. It's up to, I would say, town meeting members to get people to show up.
Right. But the thing is, we have to make sure that we ask the town meeting members to do it.
We have the town council here if we wish to put the question before him.
Joe?
We could also tell Jeffrey Allen that if he's not willing to meet with us, that will go into the subcommittee and advisory committee reports before town meeting that they refuse to meet with the neighborhood when they're considering their vote.
Well, yeah, now I'm thinking what is being presented at this so-called information session? Is it run by Jeffrey Allen?
Oh, you mean in Precinct 2?
Yeah.
Oh, no. This is just like town meeting members sharing what we know. I mean, you'll be invited as well once it goes out and a date is picked because you're in Precinct 2. But
no, I'm not, but
Well,
that's
can you
okay.
invite precinct 8?
I'm sorry. I thought you were. Sorry,
Can
what
you-
was that?
Can you invite precinct 8 town meeting members as well? Because we're right across the street.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's going to be the surrounding precincts around that property or around that development.
Joe Callahan, what is the town required to do in this instance with the Pleasant Street project?
There is a bylaw that I'll have to double check, but I don't think there's any requirement because it's a warrant article as opposed to like a special permit, application or something like that. So there is a bylaw. I'll have to check about requiring that we notify renters too, things like that. But I don't think that adds anything to like a town meeting advisory committee. CTO&S reviewing a warrant article. I don't think notice requirements apply to those type of meetings.
No,
I mean, this is exactly why I built this thing a while back to help, get alerts about things that are, that are not zoning specific, but are still geographically located so that you can find out, but that still requires somebody to proactively use it. It won't just notify people.
I think if
Joe,
this were a permanent
isn't that-
thing, it would
sorry.
be abutters to abutters at 300 feet. And maybe planning has a list of who they would have to alert. So that might be some indication of people who need to know or should know, but I don't know how those notices.
Right, and it wouldn't
go
necessarily
out.
be
You're
an
not going to
email
mail it
list
because
either.
it's not for them and we don't have the mailing budget for that either, so I'm not sure, but they may have that list already.
So
And
wait,
Joe, the warrant
am I
article you're talking about, isn't that more for zoning? Or when notifications have to happen, they used to be only to owners, and now it's owners and renters. So what triggers it is the official notification requirement, to which, for example, the zoning board of appeals has, but not necessarily the advisory committee in any case, correct?
Yes, but what I know is that it requires more than what the state law requires, which is nothing here. So I know the bylaw requires more than what state law requires, and I'll have to double check how much more it requires, but I don't think it applies here either.
Well, that's really unfortunate. I do remember when we took the multifamily permitting zoning to the select board, we notified thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I think you're asking the question is what is required, because I'm the town's lawyer. You can do a lot of things, but what you're required to do, I don't believe there's any notice for warrant articles before town meeting or AC or any of the committees that are hearing warrant articles.
Right. So this flippant response of, oh, well, they can just come to the public hearing, I just find really offensive, because how do they know? How do they know?
So yeah, I guess
Right, but Linda, it was
the same thing, because to Linda's point, like if, for instance, I don't know, I decided not to start to organize this thing just to share information. Are you saying that these precincts surrounding the 26 Pleasant Street wouldn't otherwise be notified about decisions that are being made?
Yes, that's what
Am I
he's
hearing
saying.
that correctly?
Yes.
For warrant articles, yeah. And that's one of the reasons we have town meeting members.
Well, it's
I
one of
can
the
think
reasons
of-
why a developer bringing zoning to town meeting is a bad idea. There's
So
no
I can think
process.
of-
There's zero process here. Zero.
I can think of no precedent.
Right.
So I can think of no precedent, not Hancock Village, not Newbury College, not any other, sort of, precinct specific or more broadly, zoning article where we ever did notice other than the, notice posted for any other meeting. I find no precedent.
Hancock Village, what was Hancock Village?
no, but it wasn't noticed for the warrant article. I mean, it's the same thing. Chestnut Hill
wasn't a
West.
warrant
That's what I'm saying.
article.
For the warrant article itself, I can think of no precedent
Right.
where we had a notice other than a notice of an advisory committee meeting.
So then
Yeah.
how
I mean,
are
for-
these residents supposed to be notified?
Yeah, so there's another issue that, I mean, sometimes if there is a department that's involved in the article and reviewing it, they should notify. I can think of the chamber, for instance, when there are things in the commercial areas, the chamber then notifies other members of the chamber. They spread the word, and I don't know in this case, Linda, because it is a developer.
No, the
as
planning
opposed-
department has, Kara has told us that she has directed her staff to not be involved in this.
Yeah, that is
Well,
a
maybe
real,
that's the problem. I mean, if you think about this article, or if you think about the foie gras, where where the merchants notified of the foie gras warrant article, or was it the Chamber of Commerce? Or if you think about the ADU in the past or now, where single family zoning. In this case, it would be wherever you can build a single family.
Yes.
Are they going to be notified?
No.
Chestnut Hill West, are they going to be notified? And the answer is no. I mean, maybe that's something where our system is not working.
Yeah.
And maybe this is an example where people have to be more proactive of what's going on in your own town. But it does bring something up.
Yeah, I mean, those other
concerning.
projects have at least had more public exposure. I mean, not that that's an excuse for it, but
Clark Road was an example where it just showed up at town meeting.
well, they had
the warrant article
several
process.
neighborhood meetings, though.
yeah, the neighborhood knew all
After.
about it. And
After,
they showed up at the meetings.
yes.
Well, it
So
sounds
they were
like the
organized.
hearing, the AC hearing for this
Mm-hmm.
probably be scheduled with more than a 48-hour notice, so that there's an opportunity to sort of spread word around the neighborhood that there's essentially a public hearing or an ability to listen and speak and ask questions coming up.
Linda, do you know when that hearing is supposed to be happening?
No, we haven't scheduled it yet at all.
All right.
I'm
And I
wondering
think-
about putting notice in the library right across the street. Isn't there a public bulletin board there, or
Mm-hmm.
that would
But
be
I also
one?
think that the planning department should probably do something, because it is something that is going to go through their process.
Right. The planning department can't necessarily send out updates every time we change one of our subcommittee, meetings, but the planning department could potentially notify people of where the information will be tracked for this, and where they can find out what's going on. There's got to be some middle ground here. Linda, I think you and I should talk maybe tomorrow or something also about, like, I'm happy to talk to Kara also, just to try to encourage them.
Also,
To
I'm
do
trying
the
to-
noticing, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In trying to put this on town meeting, I live next to my famous annoying 40B that, as a distant abutter within 300 feet, I've never been notified about anything in writing. But for Elisa, it's not trivial for town meeting members to inform their constituents, because what are you going to do? Knock on everyone's door? We don't have access to the email addresses of all of our constituents. And I mean, I've tried to inform my constituents about our local issue, and it's a lot of effort to try to find emails, or ways of contacting them. So saying it's up to the town meeting members, well, duh, how are we supposed to do it? There isn't a windfall of emails coming to our inbox.
I mean, that's a fair point. That's why it's taking so long for me to even organize just a general informational session for people to ask questions.
Call me up. I can give you some advice.
I'm just worried about that because what facts are you going to give? We haven't had a hearing on it. We haven't discussed
Well,
it.
it wouldn't be scheduled before the hearing. It
Okay.
would just be a reiteration, really, for people who couldn't make the hearing, is what I was thinking more
Okay.
so.
Mhm.
Nothing about nothing preemptive in any way, shape, or form. But again, like Fran makes a really good point. Like I have to actually know somebody to be able to reach out to them, have their contact information. And then B, they have to be able to be willing and then also have the time to do it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, Joe, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to look at the bylaws, and these are zoning bylaws. So 9.8, notice to town meeting members and others. That only deals with one's abutters, and the other 9.13 tenant and resident notification that only deals with variances and special permits. So not warrant articles. So the two kind of local zoning bylaws that you have added requirements above state law do not apply here.
Linda, I guess the only thing I would say is that I would talk to the developer and their lawyer and say, or image wise, and if you want to have more support at the subcommittee hearing, that would probably be a good idea to meet with the neighborhood so that you can say that you've met with the neighborhood. Because one of the first things that the subcommittee is going to ask is, like, have you met with the neighborhood, and what did they say?
Yeah, they're going to
And-
say, yeah, we did. And we had 25 people, and we can't tell you who those people were. And they were in favor of it, even though I've talked to 4 people who were there who said the reception was mixed. So all you get is his word. That's it.
Linda, I was at that meeting, which was on the same night as First Light. Not to be annoying. I thought the developer seemed quite reasonable and amenable. So I would contact them and forget about Jeffrey Allen. They seemed
No,
to
we
be
did reach out to
contacted them, and they said,
Yes. Yes.
All right. Any other warrant articles of grave concern that we can get subcommittee chairs thinking about? All right. So
One last item for
Yeah.
you, Dennis. Did we ever receive the executive summary for the audit?
Which I'm trying to which
So
summary
the
you're
town
referring to?
had an audit that's about 2 years overdue. We've been trying to get something on it. Apparently it's in hand and there's an executive summary. And it was brought up the other night, I think, by Jocelyn, and there was a commitment that, oh yeah, we'll send over the executive
Yeah, it was
summary.
Lincoln.
So
who said
that
he was gonna
specific,
send it.
I thought you were referring to the CLA thing for some
No,
reason.
not the CLA. Yeah.
The no, nothing has. So 2 things have 2 commitments that were made 2 nights ago. So we haven't gotten that, and there hasn't been any follow-up yet on the specific ask for the CLA. So I have a note to reach out to Chaz tomorrow about the CLA stuff. So I'll ask him about this as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just as a reminder, next AC meeting, Tuesday, March 17, hybrid, live at Town Hall in room 103.
at 7?
At 7 o'clock, and presumably will be fed.
Yeah, we still have a budget for that.
There's no pepperoni.
There's no pepperoni.
I have
get
extra
one pepperoni.
pepperoni I'll bring.
All right. Thanks,
But we
everybody.
need an oven too if you're going to bring pepperoni.
No,
There are
we're working on this budget.
microwaves.
This budget still has money in it for pepperoni.
So
All right.
FY 26 still
one
has
more
pepperoni.
question. Is the Thursday meeting on the 19th going to be in person, or is that on Zoom?
No, that'll be a Zoom.
Right now, the default, unless you hear otherwise, is that the Tuesdays would be hybrid and the Thursdays
Okay.
would be virtual. And we may end up rearranging, but for now, that's what Lisa looked for, was to try it. And so she's been able to get 103, and when she can't get 103, she's getting the school committee room.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.